And joining us to talk about this allegations against Mark Robinson more is Dr. Susan Roberts from Davidson College, political science professor there. Dr. Roberts, first off, your take on what we're seeing tonight with Robinson.
Oh my goodness. You win by the narrative, you lose by the narrative. And he had his narrative of being growing up in poverty. Even though this is, not that long ago, you can't walk this back. And I think that's really part and parcel of what we're thinking about. And I think he didn't run on I'm a saint, but he walked back and kind of couched his comments about access to abortion. It saddens me to think that this is where we are in our political discourse. And I don't think he can walk this back. I don't think Trump can. Trump can be silent. I think that he's already facing an uphill battle, which wasn't the case all the time.
Well, interesting, too. CNN's investigation, very detailed in its reporting today. Robinson denying those allegations. And also there's reportedly those inside the GOP, including the Trump campaign, they're telling Robinson to drop out. Do you think that'll happen? And tell us about that deadline tonight at midnight.
Well, I think at this point, he has to stay on to really save face. He had a very good opportunity to get out graciously. He could have said, these are rumors, these are innuendos. It's AI. For the good of the party, I need to drop out of the race. But he's not going to do so. And I think that deadline, unless there is, a come to the well kind of decision, he's got to stick with that. There was a gracious way out, albeit tenuous. I really think that, for CNN to say some of these things are far too graphic are really telling. And I'm very sad by the turn of this event. But he was already, some of his comments, his own words about access to abortion and women's sexual behavior are damning. And a candidate can beat another candidate by using that person's own words. And those words were already out there.
President Trump has endorsed Mark Robinson. Robinson, we just talked about, was in an 8-point deficit right there to Stein. But it's also with Trump in a heated battle against Harris here in a battleground state of North Carolina. Could he see that as a drag on him at the polls come November for Trump?
I think it's entirely likely. It may not be the case, but you have to wonder, where were the voters? They have to make a very distinct determination between the candidate at the top and the gubernatorial candidate. And for the longest time, for him to say Robinson is Martin Luther King Jr. on steroids, my good friend, and so on, is very difficult to distinguish between the orientation of both. Not orientation, but the rhetoric has been inflammatory by both Trump and Robinson. And I think that to call it all AI generated, I want to ask the question, how much vetting did the Republicans really do about Mark Robinson? I mean, these should have been, did CNN have to dig that deep? And could this have been something that was released earlier on and given Robinson more of a window for an exit?
If Robinson was to drop out, who would be on the short list for Republicans to take his place?
Well, I firmly think Mark Walker should be on that list. He's a person who he's been vetted. He has the kind of stamp of integrity, I think, with his background. Trump did not endorse Mark Meadows and then had to put his support behind Madison Cawthorn, which he later regretted, I believe. And Trump is making the smart decision to say nothing. And right now, as I understand it, if Robinson's name is on the ballot, all the votes he received will go to the person that Republicans want to win that seat. People aren't going to look that closely. They may say, I don't want Mark Robinson. Maybe I just won't vote in that race. Maybe I'll just skip that vote altogether. And I think that's highly likely if you're a strong Trump supporter. But you just can't bring yourself to vote for someone who's made outrageous comments about of a sexual nature and really contradicting themselves with his stance on transgenders and associated politics.
Well, we're certainly going to have to see what plays out over the next 48 hours. Trump scheduled to appear in Wilmington on Saturday and a campaign rally there. Dr. Susan Roberts from Davidson College, thanks for joining us tonight here after baseball, and we'll certainly keep in touch with you over the next few days.